And we are live. Welcome to the Chiefs Instant Reaction post-game show. I am Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero, recapping a dominant 41-31 win for the Kansas City Chiefs over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. Do not let the 10-point differential fool you. This game was not that close between these two teams. Arguably the best performance of the season for the Chiefs, or at least certainly since the Week 1 win over Arizona. Tampa Bay from the very jump, fumbling the opening kickoff, looked to be a mess and was playing catch-up for the entire night. Dan, before we get to some of the top performers from this game, what's your big takeaway from a win in which the Chiefs came out and were the better team quite literally for 60 minutes after Rashad White fumbled the opening kick?
Yeah, it was a gut check performance for the Chiefs after the way they tricked off that game against the Colts last week, and a lot of questions being asked, I think rightfully so, about the Chiefs coming out of that game. And it feels like it was a moment that helped them refocus, and that's what we got to see in this game, what a locked-in Chiefs team looks like for 60 minutes. That's what they look like. That's what they did to the best defense in the NFL on the road in prime time. That was as impressive a showing as we've seen from any NFL team in any situation this year, and should silence any concerns coming out of week 3 and prove once again that the Chiefs are in the upper echelon of NFL contenders.
And I think the big thing for me, you had the complete reversal with that kickoff fumble that the Chiefs, who last week it was the punt that Sky Moore muffed. This time around, it was the Chiefs who benefited from that. The fact that even after that play, it was all gas, no brakes. And I know that's become such a cliche in football circles in the last 2 to 3 years or so. Shout out to Steve Sarkisian. But truthfully, I mean, that's what it was, especially in the first half of this game, that the Chiefs just kept being aggressive with it. They were pushing it down the field. Mahomes got a bunch of different guys involved. You had a ton of different guys who ended up with touchdown receptions in this game. 3 different receivers caught touchdowns. Travis Kelce, your game's leading receiver. Jody Fortson had a score. Clyde Edwards-Helaire caught 1 pass for the game. It was a touchdown. He ran the ball in 2. He has been a touchdown machine to start this season. Who are some of the performers that really stood out to you? And I think really offensively and defensively, there's a few different ways you can point to here.
I think we have to start with Clyde Edwards-Helaire because this was the rebirth of the Chiefs running game. This is kind of what we thought that the Chiefs could look like on the ground. And it is not easy to run against these Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are very stout up front. Vita Vea is as good a space eater as there is in the NFL. It is not easy to run on this bunch. Certainly not as easy as the Chiefs made it look. They ended up with 189 yards on the ground on 37 carries, 5 yards a rush, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire was at the head of that. 19 carries for Clyde for 92 yards and a score on the ground. The 4.8 yards per carry doesn't jump out as anything spectacular, but I'll tell you what stands out to me the most. Jerick McKinnon had led the Chiefs in snap count among running backs the first 3 weeks. I haven't seen the snap count numbers tonight, but it had to be Clyde. He was out there. He was the main man. It looked like he re-entered Andy Reid's and Patrick Mahomes' perhaps circle of trust. Even though he had that one bad drop that killed a drive in the first half, he was stellar otherwise. Right place, right time for the touchdown catch on a play that will go in Patrick Mahomes' career highlight reel, and a really solid job down the stretch to help the Chiefs effectively kill that game off. Buccaneers deserve a lot of credit. They didn't go away. Brady was super. Their passing game got into a rhythm, but it was the Chiefs' ability to pound the ball that really separated them and kept the Buccaneers at arm's length in the second half after Mahomes and company put together a terrific first half. So I start with Edwards-Helaire. I thought he was terrific, and I thought that was a big game for him confidence-wise, and a big game, I think, for the Chiefs' running attack confidence-wise as well.
Oh, absolutely huge. And again, 19 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown. You will take that any day of the week. He also had the 1 catch for a touchdown as well. And again, he's just been a magnet to the end zone this season. Isaiah Pacheco had his best game as a pro as well in this one. 11 carries, 63 yards in the contest. He was effective. They were using him at the very end of the game as well to kind of milk things. And I think with that, you also have to give a lot of credit to this offensive line. And it was Shaq Barrett during the week. We talked about this on 580 Sports Talk, who said, hey, this same group we played in Super Bowl 55. It said nothing different about this group. It was like going up against them. This offensive line, whether you want to say that was bulletin board material, whether you want to say that they just had an off week last week, they're just hitting their groove, whatever, they came out and made a statement in this game. Because you're right, that Buccaneers front is extremely difficult to run against. Vita Vea up front. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has become a very nice player. Logan Hall is having a good start to his rookie year. Those linebackers, Devin White, who has had one of his best games probably since Super Bowl 55 early in that game tonight. Throw in Levante David, one of the most underrated players in the league. There are a bunch of dudes up front for the Buccaneers. And the Chiefs had multiple running backs who went for over 60 yards in this game. That's not really the norm in the NFL anymore unless you've got a truly great tailback. The Chiefs were able to do that. They got plenty of push up front. I think that group truly came into this game looking for vengeance, looking to prove, yeah, you want to say where that line from the end of the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 55, the end of that 2020 season, do so at your own peril. That was an extremely impressive effort, I thought, by the offensive line. And honestly, even when they weren't great in this game, Patrick Mahomes made some plays that were just absolutely sensational. We've got to talk about number 15, man, because he was on it in this game. You had the crazy play early in the game, the sidearm throw to Travis Kelce over the middle. You had the ridiculous touchdown pass that he flipped into the back corner of the end zone when it looked 2 or 3 times like he was going to get sacked. He maybe didn't have his best numbers of his career tonight. Finishes the game 23 out of 37, just under 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, did have the pick. But overall, and we'll get Dan back here in just a moment, overall, I don't know how you can't be overwhelmingly impressed by what Patrick Mahomes was able to do in this contest. And that's the thing about having the guy at quarterback is you can go up against any defense in the league. It does not matter who you are facing. When you have the guy, you trust that they are going to go in there and make plays. And sometimes, even when you have the guy, it is hard to win in a matchup like that. You look just a week ago for Tampa Bay, and we talked about this again all over 580 Sports Talk during the course of the week leading up to this Sunday night contest. Green Bay won last week against Tampa in Tampa, and yet Aaron Rodgers had an extremely pedestrian day. Green Bay scored 2 touchdowns on their first 2 drives of the game, or 2 of the first 3 drives anyway. They didn't do jack nor squat for the entire rest of the game. Tampa Bay completely shut them down. The Chiefs in this game just continually poured it on nonstop over and over and over throughout the entire contest. You had 14 points in the first quarter. Second quarter, you scored 14 as well. Another 10 in the third. They tacked on the field goal at the very end of the game, but it was academic at that point, and the Chiefs were able to put it away. I think the fact they went all gas, no brakes, they were aggressive throughout the game. Patrick Mahomes was on one. I don't know if he felt like he had something to prove as well. Like, I think that offensive line certainly felt like they had something to prove, but I think that was truly one of the most impressive outings we've seen from Patrick Mahomes and that offense in a while. And again, week 1 was awesome. The Cardinals defense, not nearly as good as this Buccaneers defense. And as we bring Dan back into the show, Dan, I was just talking about how good Patrick Mahomes was in this contest tonight. I mean, that was about as impressive as you could possibly be from number 15.
Good. And I got to give him a ton of credit for, you know, again, we've talked a lot about him taking what the defense gives him, right? And I thought that was an example, as I'm trying to figure out my camera settings here on the having a little internet issue here, but we're good now, I think. Anyway, 23-37 for 249. I mean, those numbers aren't, you know, the video game numbers that we've seen Mahomes throw out there, but they got into a rhythm. We had talked earlier in the week, Brandon, about the need for the Chiefs to get the quick game back into the passing attack. And they did early in this game, and I think that was huge for getting Mahomes into a settled rhythm, keeping the pass rush at bay, getting more guys involved in the offense. McCole Hardman had a catch early. We saw Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster have solid games. Sky Moore got involved in the passing game more than we've seen him this year. I think when you add all of that up, you look at a passing game that I think found its rhythm and found its identity more so than it had been able to in the first 3 weeks of the season. You and I had talked, we thought this might be a low-scoring defensive struggle in this game.
Yep.
Both of us were on the under 45.5 points. The Chiefs laugh at that. They almost got there themselves. I thought the Buccaneers were going to win this game. I thought this would be a game where the defenses that had come out and played so well early might have an advantage against 2 struggling offenses. That is absolutely not what happened. A nice reminder that this game was quarterbacked in the end by Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, the best maybe ever, and a guy making an early claim for best of his generation. And we got to see the 2 of them kind of do what they do best throughout the night. But Mahomes outclassed that Tampa Bay defense, and they did it by getting into an early rhythm, getting Travis Kelce heavily involved in the early going, and showing that there were just too many weapons spread out for Tampa Bay to be able to account for all of them at once. That was the offense at its best tonight.
And just another example of everyone who said, oh, this offense ain't going to be the same without Tyreek Hill there. I don't know. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster. MVS had a really nice game. You mentioned Sky Moore. You got multiple tight ends involved with plenty of targets. I think this offense has been just fine, and they outclassed the Buccaneers to use the word that you just used, Dan. I think that's the perfect way to describe this, and I think that is the perfect encapsulation of this win for the Chiefs. The defense looked good as long as it needed to in this game, and now the Chiefs improved to 3-1 on the season. We'll be talking all about this game during our Sports Talk block on 580 WIBW coming up on Monday. It begins from noon until 3 with Jake Laban and Fulton Caster on Mic'd Up. Then you can join myself and Dan on 580 Sports Talk. Shortened edition of the show on Monday, but we'll be with you starting live at 3 o'clock to recap the Chiefs. Plus, we'll talk KU, K-State, and everything else from the sports weekend. Until then, we will join you on 580 WIBW coming up tomorrow afternoon. For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzynski. Enjoy a little celebration on Sunday night, and we'll talk to you coming up on Victory Monday.